After the failure of Concord, I kind of thought that the hero-based team shooter was kind of dead, but Marvel Rivals is here, and apparently it's doing quite well. Hello, this is Robert with Society Case Files, and I'm coming at you today with a video game chat. If you like this kind of content and you want to see more, please subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. Other than that, let's jump right in to talk about this game, Marvel Rivals. I hadn't thought about this game all that much. I know it came out earlier in December, and it looks cool. The graphics are neat and all. I didn't really realize that it was a hero-based shooter, that it was pretty much Overwatch, the clone. And that is the absolute best description for this. Aside from changing up some terminology, like changing tank to Vanguard, this game is pretty much Overwatch. So much so, I'm kind of surprised that Blizzard and Microsoft aren't filing some kind of lawsuit. I mean, down to the color of the fonts in some places and just the look and feel. Sure, it has more of an anime vibe, even some of the ways that the characters talk and scream and all that sort of thing. But I mean, come on guys, some of these powers are even copy and paste directly from Overwatch. For example, Scarlet Witch has a power that she can turn sort of semi-invisible and float around for a minute, just like Reaper. Star-Lord has the two pistol thing, and they shoot and seem to do the same type of damage that Tracer does. I mean, he even plays so much like Tracer that aside from being able to bounce around quite as much, the primary difference is that his super is actually worth a damn. The list goes on, and I've got some footage here of the different powers being played out, but for the most part, this is so close to Overwatch, it's actually just kind of weird that it's doing as well as it is. I mean, Overwatch has been around forever, and you could technically have been playing this game this whole time. Sure, it's colored with Marvel, and it's got all of that flair, so to speak, but by and large, this is so much that game that I don't really understand why it has that much appeal. Maybe it's just that fresh coat of paint was exactly what Overwatch needed, which is kind of funny because Overwatch could have reskinned the game just as easily. I mean, even the objectives, you know, like escorting a vehicle to some other point is exactly the same, down to even having the computer voice, or in this case, a character, Galacta, or whatever her name is, telling you what's going on. It all feels and screams Overwatch. The markers showing you how far you have to go to get a point captured, same stuff. The leaving a spawn point looks the same. Many of the maps even look kind of the same. I mean, this could just be an expansion. I know I'm harping on that a lot, and I can't get over it myself. I'm playing the game thinking, wow, how is this happening? If it was like a total one-off independent studio stealing it, that would kind of make some sense because they might think they could slip under the radar. But this is Marvel, and it's even so official that way back there was that Marvel Heroes game that was sort of an ARPG, had tons and tons of the characters. When the Guardians of the Galaxy came out, they added a variant for Rocket Raccoon because he was voiced by Steve Bloom, who was doing I guess either an Australian or British accent for Rocket. And then they brought in a different voice actor to Nolan North is who I think it is. And he pretty much aped Bradley Cooper, which that's fine. They wanted to bring it to that movie. And in this game, they got him to do the voice again. I'm not sure how many other characters they did the same thing for. I'm sure you could find out easily enough. But it's just interesting that they were able to get away with this. Now, let's move away from that. We'll talk about gameplay. Although, if you have played Overwatch, you already know what I'm about to say. Moving is pretty much the same. It feels good. Jumping is a little floaty, but that's the same as its source material, so that's fine. And when you get into points and that sort of thing, you get the same feedback letting you know what's happening. So you'll hear the sounds of the point sort of ramping up, and you're told when you're getting close and that type of stuff. The enemies show up as red just like in Overwatch. They are not necessarily too bullet spongy though, I'll have to give it that. The time to kill is reasonable in my opinion. I don't think there's anything to really say about it. Now, I've seen a whole lot of reels about the game, which kind of was the reason that I decided to try it in the first place. And there's a lot of complaints about people playing the wrong characters or not really doing that much DPS or basically just not contributing to the team, which, you know, if you've played Overwatch, you know that that's kind of how these games work. Sometimes people think they can go in 1v however many, and then they get killed, and then they rob you of their DPS or whatever they're supposed to be doing, and then they just aren't helping. And I thought the game would be a lot more toxic. I honestly didn't see any chat. They do tell you right off the bat when you log in that voice chat could be recorded to check for toxicity, to see if you're just being a jerk. Thought that was kind of interesting. But these complaints that I saw in those reels, I didn't actually witness in the games that I played. People were trying. They stuck with the team. They did their best. I'm sure that when you've played dozens, if not hundreds of games, you're going to encounter all kinds of stuff, because that's just how online games are. Every online game is particularly bad. This one doesn't seem to have a systemic problem that it needs to address. And if you look at the reviews on Steam, they're overall positive. The ones that I saw that were negative talked about some interesting stuff. One was that the chat is filtered for Chinese propaganda. That's that's interesting. I didn't really see any chat, so can't speak to that. And then there is the complaint that it is just too much like Overwatch. I saw that. I'm not sure what can be said about that, other than the fact that it's just weird that it is. So I think all around Marvel Rivals is pretty fun. I've enjoyed myself. It's cool. I did find it a little easier than Overwatch in some ways. The characters are really quite powerful. For example, Scarlet Witch has this power that you just have to hold down your mouse and aim in the direction of an enemy, and as long as you're close enough, they just start taking ticks of damage. You just do damage over time, and quite frankly, there's so much going on, it's hard for people to recognize that's happening until they're dead. She's got some other cool powers that make that even quicker, so you can hurl these bolts of chaos that cause a much larger amount of damage, and then you use your little DOT thing on them, take them down. My first game with her, I got over 25 kills and got MVP, because it's just that easy to just take people down. My second game I played with Star-Lord, and after I got the hang of him, I got MVP again. So you can really do quite a bit of damage and tear people up. I have not tried the support role or the tank role quite yet. Looking at them, they're pretty cool. I did do the tutorial to understand how they worked. And Rocket Raccoon is a support character, heals people by shooting these big yellow blobs from a gun that kind of look like a bubble gun. And they heal people, and then he can support them by adding a bunch of damage and that sort of thing. It was pretty cool. I have to say that it was it's interesting that they made him support, but then again, they have to make somebody into a support role. Whether it was Rocket as the right call, I'm not sure. But watching other people do it, it seems like it's pretty reasonable, and as long as the team is not just running around like a bunch of complete maniacs, it shouldn't be too hard to keep your team thriving and alive. But that's true of Overwatch as well. Actually, that's true of pretty much every game. You know, I've played plenty of Call of Duty where everyone just, as soon as the map starts, they all run in a completely different direction and nobody really sticks together. Unless there's a team deathmatch mode, you really can't do that in a team-based hero shooter, especially with a bunch of objectives like escorting something or taking a point. It just doesn't work. However, that doesn't stop people from trying because they want to go hero mode out or whatever. But in this game, I think that it really does encourage you to stick together better than Overwatch in some ways, because they do have that new mechanic where you have the team up mode. Certain heroes actually can synergize with others and do specific things. For example, the Hulk can throw Logan and he can just be hurled at the enemy and do a bunch of damage. And there's a Squirrel Girl can work with Spider-Man to create an acorn that when she throws it, it webs a bunch of people. Every character has something like that, and it's pretty cool. And just to prove that it does have some cognizance of who's in the team, when I played Star-Lord, I went up to the gate and that we were just about to leave to play the game, and Rocket and Groot were there. And Rocket said, "Hey, do you got your ship? Because if you do, we should get out of here." And then Star-Lord's like, "Yeah, I mean, I have it, but aren't we supposed to save the world?" And he's like, "Yeah, I guess we'll save the world." So they do have some interesting conversations. I heard Wanda speaking with Magneto, and Magneto, after watching her get a whole bunch of kills, was like, "You've made your father proud." So they have some pretty cool triggers that offer some neat little dialogue options here and there. All around, despite the fact that I know I harped on it being too much like Overwatch at the beginning, I have to say that I've had a lot of fun with Marvel Rivals, and I will probably continue to play it for some time. I'm not sure how much I recommend it if you're kind of sick of these games, because it is these games. But apparently they had 20 million people start playing the game since it came out on December 6th, which to me says that people either just love Marvel a lot more than you hear online with all the people complaining about the movies, or they were desperate for a new hero shooter since Concord was a bust and Overwatch is, I don't know, maybe it's stale. But maybe it's a combination of the two, an affection for the movies and a desire for this type of game. Whatever the case, it doesn't seem to be going anywhere, and the prices aren't that crazy for the in-game stuff. You can buy outfits. They're less than $20 for each of those, and then there's a game pass, battle pass, I should say. But it didn't really seem to offer that much stuff. It did have the format of Helldivers, so it is all just cosmetic, and I mean, if that's something that you want to spend your money on, it's not as crazy as like Path of Exile, where the outfits were $40 to $45 each. This is much more reasonable in my opinion. I'm not sure what would compel me to do it. I guess if I just started playing the game practically professionally, I'd want to make my mark, but it's not like there's a ton of outfits. So if a bunch of people of like mind decided to spend some money, you're still going to look a lot like someone else. I think most of the characters only have 3 additional outfits. It's not like in Overwatch where there's some characters have 20 outfits available to really differentiate them. In fact, Overwatch has so many outfits that occasionally I don't even know what character someone's playing until I see him start using some powers. But that is not going to be the problem here. Now, of course, every game that Marvel has ever had, whether it's Marvel Heroes or the Avengers game that came out, they always have just tons of outfits eventually, because these characters do have just dozens upon dozens from all the years they've been in the comics. Anyway, there's not much else to say about Marvel Rivals. It's a fun game. It's free to play. The microtransactions aren't that expensive. It does have that cool synergy system where you can team up with different characters, and the roster is fairly extensive right off the bat. I think that you would not feel bad if you gave it a try. I mean, there's nothing really to lose other than a little bit of time. So all around, give it a shot, see what you think. Let me know in the comments if you have played it or if you've played Overwatch, if you're just sick of these kinds of games, if you tried Concord and are sad that it's gone. Let me know. I'd love to hear back from you. Anyway, this is Robert with Society Case Files, signing off.